Hey, this is Leo for Actualized.org. And in this video, we're talking about something very important. I want to talk to you about how to use books to transform your life and to take your personal development to a whole new level. A whole new level. What you can do with books and the impact that just a simple habit of reading books on a weekly basis can do for you is enormous. Let's talk about that, and at the end of this video, I'm going to introduce 6 of some of the most important books that I think you should be reading. And also, what's really cool is that I've been working really hard to create a list of all the books that I've read in the last 5 years. And I've read over 150 books. Amazing books on self-help, productivity, success, finances, health, relationships. So there's so much covered here. And I'm going to share 6 of my top books, but really also I'm going to be launching this master list of 140, and I'm going to keep expanding that list over the months, and I'm going to hope to grow it to 200 books. So that's going to be available to you. If you go to Actualized.org/books, you're going to get 12 freebie ones, and then if you want to get the full list, it's available for a very, very low price. Anyways, so let's talk about what books can do for you. Why are books important? Why am I even excited about talking about this? It's very exciting because to me, what's really important in mastering your own life is to be able to see 10 steps ahead. You want to develop that ability to see 10 steps ahead. When we're born in life, when we're growing up in our teens, we don't know much about life. We're just stumbling around, basically like a blind person, just feeling and groping in the dark and seeing what we can grasp. And through this means, our parents help us, our teachers help us, our friends help guide us, society helps to kind of guide us and corral us and put us down these tracks. But as you're going into your career, into your higher education, as you're getting into more serious relationships, you're starting businesses, you're working on your health, so you're doing all this stuff, you need answers. And you need wisdom. You need the ability to think and to see and to strategize about your own life. Very practically, this isn't just philosophy or theory or something that was written in a science book. This is something like more about, okay, what do I have to do to reach the kind of goals that I have in my life? How do I actually accomplish it? How have other people accomplished it? And this is where books come in. Because if you just read a couple of books, that's nice. If you watch a couple of my videos, that's nice. If you maybe go to a seminar once in your life, that's nice. Or if you watch and purchase an information product somewhere, audio product, video product, that's also nice. But there's nothing quite like immersing yourself and slowly building up this giant, grand mental model of how life works. That's the whole point of Actualized.org. That's what I want to convey to you through these videos, is I want you to have a really accurate, really rich, robust mental model that will allow you to make informed choices. It'll allow you to follow your values in life. It'll allow you to achieve your goals, to find happiness and fulfillment, all of these things. These things aren't easy to find, especially considering that you're your own unique person, you have your own values, your own set of priorities in life, and so you're going to have to custom tailor whatever information you're finding out there to you so that it's working for you and it's feeling nice for you. Well, to do that, what you got to do is you got to start putting this giant jigsaw puzzle into place. That's how I like to think of it. Think about it as though you have this giant 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle when you're born, and all the pieces are flipped over and randomly scattered around, and you don't even know what the final picture should look like. And as you're born and you're going through life, you're starting to assemble these pieces. This is just something that naturally starts to happen. And you're getting little faint glimpses into what's right in this situation, what's right in that situation, what do I want here, how do I deal with that relationship there, and you're starting to put these pieces into place. But most people, they have a very scattered jigsaw, and I would say they only have a couple of percent, less than 10% of the jigsaw puzzle pieces put into place, even when they're in their 40s and their 50s. They just don't have it because they haven't spent the time, nor have they immersed themselves in the right information and wisdom, which is contained in these books, to do it. So the value of reading these books is that once you start to read 20, 50, 100, 200 books, what starts to happen is that a lot of stuff gets interconnected. And each of these little pieces of the puzzle get put into place for you. And what's interesting is that every one of us has our own puzzle. No one has the exact same puzzle. So this is something that only you can do for yourself. You can't outsource this to somebody else. You can't just find some guru. You can't just use all my videos to do it. Now, my videos are good. Even if you watch a lot of them, they'll get you a lot of this jigsaw puzzle thing into place. Except what's going to happen is that you're going to be missing the finer details. Because what I'm doing in my videos is I'm giving you broad overviews. I'm painting with broad strokes. I'm using generalities. When you're reading a book firsthand, there's something different there. And I want to outline some of the value that you get from doing that. So here's why really it's important to read lots of books. One is that it's a deeper source of information. When you're reading this book, there's so much information, even one of these books that I'm going to share with you, that you can read it multiple times. You can read it 5 or 10 times and still not mine all of it out. So there's a lot. For me to cover that in videos, I would have to shoot 20 or 100 videos on that one book. So that's the level of depth that we're talking about here. When I'm giving you information in a video, those are broad strokes. I can't capture all the nuances, and those nuances, they're fascinating, and they're also important, because sometimes it's the little details that really matter. And when I'm telling you the details that I feel are important, that's not necessarily the important details that you are going to need. When you read a book, you might get something different out of it than when I read a book. So it's not smart to just rely on me to do all the reading for you and then to kind of regurgitate. You want to take this stuff into your own hands, at least if you want serious results in your life. This is how you do it. The next point is that these books, they're written by amazing people. Much more amazing than I could ever hope to be, and even you could hope to be. These people are world-class experts, PhDs, researchers, like literally geniuses of all the billions of people that have ever lived. These are like the best of the best of the best people writing these books. Millionaires, sometimes billionaires write these books. Yogis, enlightened masters, like amazing business leaders, politicians, inspiring people, very creative and artistic people write these books. So if you choose the right books, then you're getting wisdom from just like amazing, brilliant minds. Amazingly written, full of like wisdom and practical advice, stuff that these people have gone literally a lifetime through of world experience, and they've distilled their own best principles and practices and golden nuggets and tips, and now they put them in this book format. Now you can read that. What's nice about that is that when you do read that, it convinces your mind on a whole new level, and it inspires your mind and motivates your mind on a whole new level than just listening to me. Because honestly, I'm not the most successful person in the world. Like, I'm not that exceptional. I'm not going to really wow you with the stuff that I've done in my life. Like, I'm still working. I'm still pretty young, so I hope to get a lot more success going forward. And maybe I'll get there 20 or 30 years from now. But right now, I'm pretty average, and I don't have a PhD. I haven't done any research. I'm not enlightened, and I haven't earned millions or billions of dollars. So that doesn't make me the most credible source. I mean, the information that I'm giving to you, it's all very accurate. It will transform your life if you listen to it. But see, your mind doesn't work on that. Your mind works on, oh, what's persuasive? What gets me fired up? What triggers me emotionally? And so part of that, of course, is the gravitas, the expertise of the person, the inspirational accomplishments that this person has accomplished. So when you read a biography, for example, of Mahatma Gandhi, or Mother Teresa, or Winston Churchill, or Benjamin Franklin, like these kinds of people, like they inspire you. These are amazing, extraordinary people. That's why I love to read from these experts, because it does convince your mind on a whole new level. And if you're not reading these books and you're just listening to me, it's okay, but you can take it to another level. The other benefit of doing this is that over the long term, as you're reading these books, even though reading one book might not transform your life immediately the day that you read it, what tends to happen is that if you invest long term in your own self and you read every single week and you read every single month and every single year, then after a few years of doing this, like I said, you get this mental model built up. And the value of that is that you know all the answers. You still struggle, you're still going to have struggles in life. You're still going to have problems. You're still going to fail in places, but at least you're going to know the ways that you should be doing things, and you're going to be able to do like a self-diagnosis. So you're never going to become stuck in life. I find that even though I have a lot of challenges still in my own life, and I'm still working really hard in a lot of aspects of my life, the one thing that I get solace in, and that gives me a lot of confidence and comfort, is that I literally do know like a little bit about almost every aspect and facet of life. At least the facets that are really important to my life. And so I feel like I can't really go down a dead end. Not anymore. Like I know so much about business and marketing and success principles and what happiness is and about consciousness and enlightenment and about relationships and about sexuality and about biographies and about history. I know so much about this stuff that it's pretty hard for me to get lost in life. I just don't see that happening. And even if I do like really screw up somewhere, make a really bad turn, I can do a self-diagnosis and I can autocorrect. This is really important because some people, they can really go down the wrong road, get really stuck, and then not know what to do. And this is what leads to making really horrible business decisions, really horrible relationship decisions, really horrible career decisions, like life decisions that can really derail you, cost you lots of time, cost you lots of money, cost you lots of just like pain and emotional heartache. So you can avoid a lot of that stuff by reading these best principles. Again, this is the wisdom of the ages right here. We have over 3,000, maybe even 4,000 years of recorded history. Civilizations from the ancient Egyptians all the way up to modern times. And from 3,000 years ago all the way to the modern times, the best experts and sages across time have written down their most important understandings of life in these books. So we literally know it all. At this point, sure, there's still stuff in science that we don't know that is being researched actively every day, but most of the stuff that's important to living a fulfilling life, to being successful, like extraordinary successful, all that stuff has been known. All that stuff has been regurgitated and written about over and over and over again, and literally you can go through and find who are the most successful, the most credible, the most amazing people, the most articulate people on these subjects, and then read those books, and you get that wisdom really quickly without having to make all the same mistakes that they have made. So this is a really great way to shortcut your way in life. So those are some of the benefits. And what I want to do with this list, the reason I worked really hard, I spent many weeks here compiling this list, going through my whole book list, giving you reviews, putting ratings on each one of these books. How important do I think it is to your own development and to your own success? Because what I wanted to do is I wanted to save you a lot of time. This list of 140 books, and it's going to grow to even more, it'll take you quite a bit of time to read it. If you wanted to read all those books, it would probably take you 2 or 3 or 5 years to get through it. And it would take you thousands of hours. Now, I know you don't have that kind of time. I have that kind of time because I do this professionally. But you don't need to be reading all 140 books to get the benefit. There's something called the 80-20 principle, and that means that 80% of your results in whatever you're doing in your life is coming from only about 20% of your effort. So using this principle here applied to this reading list, what I want to do for you is I want to give you kind of the best of the best, even of this list, so that you can go through, and if you only have a couple of hours to read every week, you can be reading like the best of the best of the best stuff that's out there. And not just stuff that's wise, but also stuff that's very practical. I tend to favor and rate highly the books that are filled with immediate techniques that you can go and apply right now, concepts that are just super fundamental and are responsible for your results, not in just one area of your life, like a relationship problem, but in all areas of your life. There are certain things in yourself, in your own psyche, that you can work on that will fix simultaneously many, many areas of your life if you just fix the root, right? That's why I like working on inner game. That's why I like working on mindsets, the subconscious mind, working with beliefs, because these things tend to cascade and have ripple effects throughout your whole life when you just fix like a problem in your subconscious mind. It tends to ripple through. So what I've done here is I've gone through and I've found the best books from not just my own experience. I mean, I've gone through and I've read lots of Amazon reviews, and of course I've filtered all these books out through my own understanding and by reading them. But I've also solicited advice from world-class experts, millionaires, successful business leaders, even yogis. So I've solicited advice from all these people to see what are the books that they recommend. And then I've incorporated that in advice. I've taken it, I've read those books, and I've seen, okay, is this really a good book? And then if it was, then I added it to this list and I gave it a high rating. So that's the value that you're getting here from this list. One thing that I do want to mention is don't be cheap with your personal development, and don't be cheap with buying books. I like to have actual physical copies of books. And one thing that I said to myself, I remember I was very deliberate about this about 5 years ago when I started this journey, is I said, even though some of these books, buying 140 books, that's pretty expensive. That goes into the thousands of dollars. And I have spent thousands of dollars on books. But I said to myself, this is one area of my life that I'm not going to be cheap in. I tend to be a pretty frugal person. I try to save money where it's not giving me any good benefit. But with books, I tend to overspend. I tend to buy more and more books. Sometimes I have 10 or 12 books lying on my bookshelf that I haven't even read, just because I want them there so that they're motivating me. And anytime I have some spare time, I can just go grab one of those books and start reading it. So don't be cheap with your personal development. In the end, a book only costs very, very little. $10, $20, like $30 is the most you'll ever pay for a book. But yet this book that costs, let's say, $20 can have thousands, if not even millions of dollars of wisdom in it. So now imagine what happens if you have a stack of those books and you're going through that stack every single week. Imagine the benefits that has long-term for you. It's quite enormous. So don't be cheap with that, right? It's considering your short-term costs versus your long-term gains. And reading books is something that's not necessarily an immediate gain, although some books can give you amazing transformational like aha moments right off the bat. But most books, it's about that long-term building of mastery and expertise and that building that grand model of life that you need to have to really be successful. The other thing that I think is really important is categories of life, right? Studying success is something that I love. So reading a book on success or productivity is awesome. But there's a lot more than just that to self-help. I think to be successful in life, you need to be a really well-rounded person. You don't want to be too narrow-minded. And so to this end, what I did is I categorized all the books on my list into 16 major categories. And I'm probably going to be growing the categories and changing them around to make them even better. But right now, I have about 16 of them, and I want to talk a little bit about each one here because I think it's important to discuss why these categories are critical to your success. So of course, the first and most important category is success psychology. There's been a lot of amazing books written about how to be successful in life, how to be more productive and more efficient. So success and productivity, these two categories are really important to study. The next category is happiness. What is happiness? How does happiness work? Especially right now, in the last 30 years, there's been a lot of research done in the positive psychology movement about what happiness is, and it's good scientific research. But there's also lots of classic wisdom from thousands of years ago from both Western and Eastern traditions about what happiness is. And almost nobody understands what happiness is. It's a very counterintuitive concept. That's why I like shooting videos about it, because it challenges some of the notions that society feeds you. And happiness is very different from what society tells you it is. So studying happiness and reading books on that is very important. There are some amazing critical books that you must read about happiness that I'm really happy to share with you on this list. Next is life purpose. For me, life purpose is the whole reason that I got into this thing with Actualized.org. It's about how to create a passionate life. How do you find that one thing that you get married to in your life? And I don't mean a person, but I mean your career, your work. What is going to be your creative contribution in life? And what are all the challenges with pursuing it? Because there are lots of challenges. Even once you discover what your passion is, you have to go out there and do the hard work, and you're going to have a lot of limiting beliefs, a lot of things in your psychology holding you back from doing that. So there's important books you need to read on that. The next critical category is relationships and sexuality. I find that most people are horrible in relationships, and they're not too good with sex either. So studying what is the difference between the male and the female mind? What are the communication gaps that exist in intimate relationships? How do you build better friendships? So not just intimate relationships, but of course, platonic relationships fit into this category as well. So all of these things are really critical to understand. Also, how do you date better? How do you attract that man or that woman of your life that you want to make your lifelong partner? How do you do that? How do you become really good with sex? How do you explore your sexuality in ways that the average person has never explored, and you can get like amazing fulfillment out of doing that. So that's a really area that I'm really passionate about, is this relationship and sexuality category, and I have amazing books on that. I'm so excited to share those with you. The next thing is consciousness, spirituality, and enlightenment. This is huge. This is something that I'm really immersing myself in right now. This is where you go after you do lots of kind of practical personal development, is that you get more into that more abstract, ethereal consciousness work and enlightenment work. There's amazing books. I have books that will shatter your whole worldview if you read them on consciousness. Just absolutely amazing. And it's not just theorizing, it's not just philosophy. These books will get you amazing results in your life, because once you start to master your consciousness, this is like the most fundamental root of all your suffering and problems in life is your ego. And when you start to work with your ego directly, that's incredibly powerful. So I'm very excited about those. The next category is health and nutrition. Very big. Once you start to get into self-actualization work, one thing you're going to realize is that, oh shit, I gotta get my health into shape. The average person in this society in America is horribly out of shape, destroying their body, really setting themselves up for disaster later on in life. So once you become more aware and you get other aspects of your life into place, your health, if it's not being optimal right now, then you're going to want to optimize it, and I have good books on that. The next one is money and finances. Money is the currency that allows you to live life and to do the things that you want to do in life. And money is a really tricky one, because a lot of the reason people struggle with money is because they have limiting beliefs and unresourceful mindsets about it. It's not so much about going out there and earning lots of cash. It's more about developing the right mindsets that then allow you to conserve your money properly, earn more of your money properly, invest it properly. And I have amazing books on that as well. The next category, not quite as practical and as tangible, but is still, I think, very important, is what I call social science. Social science and history. I think that to develop a really solid mental model, you have to incorporate understanding of history and science. And there's both the physical sciences. Literally, you should understand a little bit about physics, you should understand a little bit about mathematics and logic, and you should also understand the social sciences. What's going on with economics? What's going on with psychology? What's going on with sociology and anthropology? You got to know this stuff. It helps. It's like the glue that cements all the pieces together. And of course, going back in history and taking the lessons of history is really important, because what reading history will teach you is it'll teach you wisdom and judgment, so that you're going to have a really good idea of how to discern between what are the situations that are really going to screw you up, what are the situations that are going to work out really well, what are the lessons from history. It's also going to inspire you, and it's going to show you trends. It's going to show you how to distinguish what a trend is versus what a fad is. So I think that's important. It's also extremely fascinating to me to study all that stuff. And lastly, I think the most one of the important categories is biographies. Biographies, like we said, are written by these amazing human beings, like the cream of the crop of all of society over thousands of years. So from these biographies, you can read and pick apart the lives and the minds of amazing people. Creative people, political people, amazing business leaders, sages, spiritual leaders. Like, there's so much to mine. And these biographies, they show you the struggles that a human being goes through in life. And you can learn a lot from that by reading it. It's basically like living an alternate life. So the more biographies you read, I find it's almost like you've lived through somebody else's life, through their eyes, and you've seen what they've seen. So when you read 20 or 30 biographies, like, wow, you've got so much more stability in you as a human being, because it's like you've already lived through 30 different lives. So those are the categories. And there are more categories, but I think these are the most crucial. If you study all these, and I've got books in each one of them, many, many books, then you're going to be really solid. What I want to encourage you is I want to set a challenge for you here. If you're resonating with this and you're really excited about taking yourself to the next level, then commit to this challenge. The challenge is to read one book per week for a year. So that equals 52 books in 1 year. It's not that hard to read one book per week. You just got to set that intention, have a stack of books, and I've got you covered there. So we've got this list. Know what you need to be reading, pick the right books for you, and then just get to work and just steadily chip away at it. Imagine the competitive advantage that you would have if you read 50 books a year. And then imagine if you did that for 5 to 10 years. Just think about it. That's 200 books, maybe even 500 books. Just think about what that could do for you across all these different categories of life. What would that do for your success? What would that do for your relationships? What would that do for your career, for your business, for your money, for your health? This would really transform all those areas, and it would just make you so much more grounded as a human being. Think about the competitive advantage this gives you over your colleagues at work, or competitors in your business, or the competitive advantage it gives you over other mates in finding that right girl or boy that you want in your life, or in raising your kids. It's amazing what this can do for you. So what I've got here and what I want to share with you is I have 6 books from my list. These are some really foundational books that I think almost everybody has to read. And what I want to do is give you a quick overview of each one of them. All right, so let's start with that. And the first book that I have here is called Mastery by George Leonard. This little book is my top book of all time. This is the most important book, I think, that everyone has to read. It's short, it's simple, but it's packed with amazing wisdom about how to become a master in anything in your life. How do you develop proficiency at it? How do you become world class at anything? So whether it's a hobby, a sport, a game that you like to play like chess or poker, or your career, a martial arts, golf or tennis, there's so many different areas of our lives that we want to get good at. How do we do it, and what are all the pitfalls involved? So here in this book, George Leonard, he talks about the mastery curve and a lot of the counterintuitive notions that we have about how mastery works. Mastery isn't the way that we think it is when we start, and there are a lot of pitfalls, and he talks about the 3 common archetypes of failure that happen in this mastery process, and he also tells you how to cultivate more of a mastery mindset. So this one is really critical to your success. The next book is Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. This is just like a gem of a book, just packed with wisdom. It's over 2,000 years old. These are the private diaries and personal meditations of a Roman emperor, one of the noble Roman emperors. This is one of the only surviving accounts of a Roman emperor's own writing. And here we have a whole book of it. It's very readable, and it's all about Stoic philosophy. Marcus Aurelius was a Stoic, and Stoics had a very old school, hardcore way of seeing life, because 2,000 years ago, life was very harsh. And the issues they dealt with was, how do you live a virtuous life? How do you live a noble life when everybody around you is doing stupid stuff or even doing evil stuff? How do you avoid the pettiness of society and keep yourself grounded and on course? And how do you deal with serious things like emotional disturbances from death? So if people are dying around you, how do you deal with that? How do you ground yourself and keep yourself calm and even-minded? Something called equanimity. How do you develop and keep equanimity? How do you find fulfillment in the simple pleasures of life? How do you deal with the chaos of life? Because inevitably you can't control every aspect of life. How do you deal with those kinds of things? Tons of wisdom about that right here. The next book is called Authentic Happiness by Martin Seligman. Martin Seligman is the father of the positive psychology movement. He's one of the fathers, and he is doing a lot of research right now, university research, about what happiness actually is. A lot of his research is distilled in this book right here, and this is cutting-edge research about how does happiness actually work, what are the counterintuitive aspects of happiness, the stuff that we don't understand about happiness, what are the common pitfalls that people make. He has surveys in here. He also has a great website, his university website, that has some amazing surveys on it. And one of the things that's really important about this book is that he tells you the importance of understanding your own top strengths as a human being. He has a survey in here to help you find your signature strengths, because one of the ways that he defines happiness is living in alignment with your strengths. So what are your top strengths? Most people have no idea. I didn't know until I started reading this stuff and actually taking these surveys. So once you do find out your strengths, then you can start to align with those and develop that authentic happiness. Next, The Six Pillars of Self-Esteem by Nathaniel Branden. This is the ultimate book on working on your self-esteem issues and your self-confidence issues. So many of us, given the way that we grew up, the way we were teased, or the problems we had in our childhood as we were growing up, have come out with low self-esteem, insecurities, things that we're not confident in. We might feel like we're not good enough. We might feel like we don't deserve happiness. We might feel like we can't be in a relationship. We might have issues being intimate with other people. We might feel like we are chronic failures, and we are just filled with self-doubt. Well, this book helps you to address all your self-esteem issues. It goes into a lot of depth. Nathaniel Branden devoted his whole life to studying self-esteem. So he is the guy to listen to. He's also got great exercises in here and questions to help you understand where your self-esteem issues are coming from. Next, The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman. This book is critical to having successful intimate relationships. Most of us find it difficult to communicate with the opposite sex. Especially in an intimate relationship, we tend to have a disconnect with the opposite sex. And this book, it focuses on how love is communicated. So the premise here is that there are 5 ways that human beings communicate and also receive love. These are called the love languages. And you need to know what your top love language is, and you also need to know what your partner's top love language is. Most times, you two have different love languages. And so this creates a communication barrier because the language that you're communicating in is usually the way that you like to feel love, but that doesn't mean that the other person will be receptive to it, and vice versa. So this book helps you figure out what your love language is. You can also figure out your partner's love language, and it gives you ideas for how to communicate love languages so you can get better at it, and so that you can get better at speaking the other language, and then you get this much smoother relationship going. And finally, the 6th book that I'm sharing here is called The Righteous Mind by Jonathan Haidt. This is a book on social science and really social psychology. And what it asks the question here is, why are good people divided about politics and religion? If you've ever noticed, when a political problem or a religious problem gets brought up at the dinner table, it tends to cause frustration and bitterness and arguments, and people tend to be very dogmatic about those things. Why is this the case? It's very fascinating. Jonathan Haidt, he's a brilliant writer. It's very easy to read this book. Very fascinating. He presents some of the research he's done. He's a moral psychologist on morality. Where is morality coming from? What is responsible for our moral decisions? And it's not at all what you think. He goes into a lot about how the brain works, and he goes in a lot about the logical brain versus the emotional brain. And one of the interesting discoveries that he shares here is that morality doesn't come from the logical brain, it comes from the emotional brain. So read this book to understand morality, to understand politics and religion a little bit more, to understand why people bicker so much, to understand also the blind spots in yourself. This is one of those books that you read to really open and expand your mind, to make you less dogmatic. Sometimes people will ask me, Leo, you talk about being more open-minded. How do I develop more open-mindedness? Well, by reading books like these. These books show you that the beliefs that you think you have that are very solid actually aren't as solid as they appear to be. And this gets you to be more open to new ideas, open to new perspectives. So those are the 6 books. If you go to Actualized.org/books, you're going to find 6 more books that you can get for free. You can click on them and buy them on Amazon. You also can get reviews of those books. So for all the 140 books on this list that you can purchase, I have audio reviews. So you just click a button and you listen to a short review. It's just a couple of minutes long that tells you all the pertinent information you need to know about this book to decide whether you want to purchase it or not, if it's worth your time. I also have text descriptions, so both audio and text, and I also have ratings. I have a 1 to 5 rating for how important and critical this book is to you. And I have over 30 or 40 books that are rated 5 on my scale of 5 to 5. So that means that it's super critical for you to read that book. So if you're interested in that, if you're really interested in taking yourself to the next step, going really deep on this stuff, building that grand mental model that I've been talking about, then go to Actualized.org/books, check out the freebie ones. And if you want, for a really low price, if you really think about it, it's super cheap. Just for the price of 1 or 2 books, you can buy this whole list. I'm going to keep expanding it with even more. And what you get is you get the best of the best, and you get literally 5 years worth of reading material. This stuff will last you for a long, long time. So for the value, this price is really low. Go check it out, sign up, and I hope that you start reading these books, because also in the videos to come, I'm going to be talking a lot about the concepts that are contained in these books. So as you're reading along with the books and following along with my videos, you're going to be getting like really solid information that's going to be really cementing in your mind.